Hello everyone, this is Mikedot here, doing my first ever commentary video for OnRPG.com, and I'm giving a first impressions look at Guild Wars 2, a fantasy MMORPG developed by ArenaNet and published by NC Softwest. I got to try out this game during ArenaNet's first ever public beta weekend, and while this game has been in development for quite some time, there is so much hype surrounding this game, said to have features that will change what we know about MMORPGs forever. So I decided to jump in and see what all the buzz is about. As the story goes, it's set 250 years after the events of the first Guild Wars, and ancient elder dragons have awakened, and they're spreading death and destruction wherever they go, so heroes from all over must join together to stop these ancient beasts. Sounds pretty typical of what you would expect from an RPG, but there's so much more going on here in the form of side stories and personal stories, and I'll get to that later on. But for now, let's get started. While it is planned that there will be 5 different races to choose from at launch, there were only 3 playable races available in the beta: the humans, the norms, and the chars. 8 different player professions were available in the beta weekend, including engineers, rangers, necromancers, thieves, mesmers, guardians, warriors, and elementalists. When I first started out, I decided to go with a human male ranger because I liked the idea of being able to attack safely from a distance while having an attack animal to distract enemies up close. The character customization offered a pretty substantial amount of options, including body size, physique, hairstyles, face detail sliders, and color palettes for eyes, hair, skin, and more. While the amount of customization options were pretty good, I felt that it could use a bit more slider options, and there doesn't seem to be an option to select a voice for your character, but as it is now, it's definitely above average compared to other MMOs. So check this, I made my human male ranger into this smooth looking guy right here, and I gave him an awesome grizzly bear for a sidekick. You know all the ladies are gonna fall head over heels for this guy. You are given several different choices regarding your character's backstory, including their personality, how they grew up, and other details that will reflect in your character's personal story quests, which I found pretty intriguing since it gave me a better sense of connection and immersion with my character and the world they live in.
The city is my home. I grew up on the streets. Although I have friends, my life has always been hard. I've faced the worst this city could throw at me, and I sent it home bleeding.
After a brief character introduction, players will be sent into an instance area that will serve as a brief tutorial. For those that are playing as a human, this will be a small farming town that's caught in the middle of a natural disaster. A nearby NPC urged me and other players to take shelter in a nearby tavern. This is where one of the first personal story quests will take place. Personal story quests are filled with dialogue based on the choices players make from their selected backstories. Players can select different dialogue options during certain parts of the story and possibly change the outcome in multiple ways. I felt that the dialogue options may have been a bit straightforward in choices and a bit cliche at times, but it did a great job at keeping me intrigued of what could happen next.
Centaurs on the other side of town. Captain Thackeray's calling for reinforcements at the garrison.
If he's calling for help, it must be serious, but I can't spare anyone.
I'll go. Captain Thackeray's never failed Divinity's reach. If I can help him, I will.
Balthazar bless you. That's the spirit that'll win this war. Good luck.
Early in the story, the game will introduce players to the dynamic event system where players can receive public quests as soon as they enter certain areas. The first event that players will participate in as a human character was defending an old stronghold against waves of centaur creatures, all ending off with a huge boss battle against a demonic weapon.
You can throw a bucket of water, you can help.
The town of Queensdale had some interesting events going on, such as defending farmland from a group of bandits. Later on, I participated in events where the system actually scales the strength and number of enemies depending on the amount of players participating, and it seemed to be really vindictive about it. If some players in the area aren't pulling their weight, the entire group will suffer for it, so everyone has to do their part in order to succeed. Now, I didn't get to level up my character far enough to see all the available events during the weekend beta, but besides from the defense and escort events, some of the other events I participated in weren't as exciting. as they were typical of what you expect from a traditional MMO, such as kill and fetch quests. Though I think the event system is rather nice since players don't have to bother an NPC to pick up the quest, and they don't necessarily have to form a party before participating. But with that being said, the defensive events, being the most entertaining events, were few and far between, while every other kind of event was dull and average. As it is now, I'd say the dynamic event system works well, but it could be a lot better if they could improve what kinds of events that could occur. So combat in Guild Wars 2 features what ArenaNet likes to call active combat. And when they mean by active combat, they mean that action is based on context input. It looks a lot like your typical tab targeting point and click style MMO gameplay, but here you have the ability to dodge attacks, perform active blocks and counterattacks, position yourself to hit multiple enemies at a time, and other factors that players have to account for. Now the premise behind context-based combat is nothing new, as there have been MMOs that came before it with similar combat systems, such as the combat in Age of Conan or Mabinogi, and it may not be action-based on attack-based like another certain MMO that got released recently. I won't say the name, but I'm pretty sure most of you who are watching this know which MMO I'm talking about. But I feel that the combat in Guild Wars 2 is engaging enough so that it won't feel like your typical tab targeting style combat, since there's more freedom of movement to it. On the game's visuals and presentation level, when compared to the original Guild Wars, the visuals are a huge improvement, with environments that look great and have this softened, vibrant feel to it. The character animations are basic, but fluid, and they move while feeling closely connected to the ground and the environments that they move through.
Let's see the color of your coin.
From a technical standpoint, however, the visuals aren't pushing any limits. Detail and character models and textures look nice on max settings, but compared to the visuals in many other modern MMOs, Guild Wars 2 looks dated in comparison. The game is rendered using DirectX 9, which is pretty outdated, though I'm sure this means it will run well on many older PC systems. That is, of course, if they manage to fix the game's optimization issues. The client was so incredibly unoptimized that even a NASA brand PC would have trouble running it properly. On my PC, the frame rates were so incredibly low, averaging around 10 to 25 frames per second, regardless if the visual settings were set to low or high. The original soundtrack is filled with some wonderfully orchestrated tunes that breathe life into the world. Not only that, but they spent a lot of time giving the game a nice atmosphere. Even when there are no players around, NPCs like to interact with each other, and they really make the game world feel alive.
Out of my way.
What's your problem?
Your thin skin.
Can't you just say excuse me like everyone else?
Fine. Excuse me. Now get out of my way.
It's a really nice touch, and brief moments like this almost make me forget that I was playing an online game. And I think that's what they're going for here, is a really nice single player feel, and so far it works out pretty smoothly. So, player versus player content. I got to try out the arena style player versus player content in Guild Wars 2, and I'd like to say that the way PvP is structured here is really nice, and I'd like to see more MMOs with this kind of PvP, and I'll explain why later on. Players can participate in PvP almost as soon as they start playing. The PvP menu can be accessed from the hero menu, and when you enter PvP for the first time, you enter a small tutorial area with other players, and the game explains the main PvP mode, which is capture and hold. Now this game mode is pretty much like conquest mode that you would find in many modern FPS games like Battlefield or Modern Warfare. Basically, you and a team of up to 7 other players must capture areas around the map. Your team will earn a point every few seconds for each captured area. You can also gain points for your team by defeating enemies and defending captured areas. First team to earn 500 points or has the most points at the end of the round wins. Now the way that PvP is structured in Guild Wars 2 is that players are instantly set at max level, have regulated stats, equipment, and skill sets to use in battle. The reason I really like this format of PvP is because with most other MMOs, skill can only get you so far when stats and equipment are involved, and I'm not too fond of MMOs that make stats and equipment such a huge factor. This basically results in players having to form cookie-cutter class builds, and players having to design their characters to be good at either PvP or be good at PvE, and basically it's never a viable idea to form your character to do both. But here in Guild Wars 2, you don't have to worry about your character stats and whatnot. This system keeps chance and luck from random number generation down to a minimum and makes PvP combat feel pure. And that's basically what I really like about it, and I don't think a lot of MMOs use this kind of PvP, but I sure hope more MMOs will structure their PvP in a similar way sometime in the future. As a ranger in arena PvP, I have access to a full set of close and long range skills, 2 weapon sets including a longsword and a longbow, and 2 different attack animals including a bear and a cheetah. Combat in PvP felt really fast paced, and while the balance of classes are a bit questionable, it does a great job of creating some intense moments. Combat also features a mechanic called Fight to Survive. When players get knocked down, they will gain a small amount of skills with which they can use to defend themselves. This works out simple enough in PvE, but in PvP it seems sort of useless as players can perform a killing blow on downed enemies, and the chances of surviving this are pretty slim unless you have some backup. There are a lot of different things that I didn't get to try out during the weekend beta, such as the world versus world PvP, and there are a few other elements of gameplay that I'd like to give some deeper impressions on, such as the skill system and class balance in PvP, but I'm gonna wrap up my impressions saying that overall, despite a few issues here and there, I was pleasantly surprised by what Guild Wars 2 is trying to accomplish. I feel that it may not be worth all the hype that it's getting, but it has a lot of great ideas that can be improved on and fleshed out more to create a truly unique experience. That about wraps up my first impressions look at Guild Wars 2, and if you'd like to learn more about the game, check out the links below in the description for our Guild Wars 2 profile page here at OnRPG.com, but before you do that, don't forget to hit that like button. This is Mikedot signing off by saying, see you out there gamers.